Oh, in this video, I'm going to demonstrate one of the example that I received from a student, and she sent me her practice, and I want to give you some feedback that may help benefit your practice. Now, when you're practicing, usually you don't write the whole alphabet just once, because sometimes it makes it hard to be consistent in a way. I suggest if you do practice, write A, a couple of times, and then move on to also practice them in family groups like I teach you, like I taught in the Engrosser script mastery class. So anyway, to give feedback here, now if we're going to look into each alphabet, each letter, you can see that letter A here, you have the entrance stroke. Let me zoom in. You can see it's more or less to the center. Okay. But I would say this line, it looks a little bit stiff. I should make it a little bit softer curve. Now the key is make sure that when you come out, it's part of an oval. Okay. And the exit stroke here, there's a little bit of shakiness. Just be more comfortable and confident and keep going in one single stroke, which is the same as your entrance stroke. Now, if you look at letter B, the entrance stroke should be going up to the waistline. So you should bring it up to the waistline. And then you come down with the loop, come up, do the blind loop, exit. And this, I would say this loop here, it's quite long, the shade. You want to keep it between the first and second ascender. Okay, so this synthetic shade or the light shade should be much lighter. Okay, now let us see. It looks okay. Entrance stroke might be a little bit stiff. Do you notice it's a little bit like a straight line? You want to make sure it's a soft curve to the middle of the X height. And when you exit, they should be the same like this. I'm just using a ballpoint, but you exit and shade should be here. Now letter D, again, perfect placement of where the entrance stroke is, but again, it's very stiff. So I would suggest practicing with your nib. Just do a lot of this on its own to help softer the line, then you come down, right? Now, if I have to be very detailed, I notice that first, this full pressure downstroke, the top part, it's not very straight. Do you see that this is a little bit wobbly, right? I would do the touch up with the nib. So I will pretend with the nib, let's remove the ink. So I will make sure that I will draw a line on the outside of this downstroke so that to make it straighter. Okay. I think that's the only part I would do. And also, notice that this is the 55-degree slant line. This is a little bit off slant. Entrance stroke of E heading in the middle, that's great. Coming out again, this is again very subtle, but the line feels a bit, just practice a lot of this curve, very confident. Currently, it looks like a little bit straight, and the shade should be very light here. Now with letter F, you want an entrance stroke to hit the middle, on the waistline, right? And then do the loop. This loop, compared to letter B and H, you see it's a lot narrower. You want all your loops to be consistent throughout the whole practice. And notice that this is slightly off slant, right? So when you do this, make sure it's round turn. It's a round circle here. And the shade should be much less, okay? We'll demonstrate at the end. Now coming up here, I noticed that it's a little bit of coming down before you go up. You want to make sure that this entrance stroke and the exit stroke are parallel, meaning they are the same curvature, okay? Entrance for G is good. Coming down, again, slightly off slant. You see that let's see, it's slightly off slant. Do you notice, right? This is the main 55 degree. And this It happens quite often with beginner. It's a bit squarish. We want to make sure this is a nice, let's see. You want it to be a round bottom right here for the turn. This one, I will draw it out. It's a little bit squarish. Do you see that? Yeah. Connection is great. It's below the baseline and you exit. That's a nice exit stroke. Now with letter H, entrance stroke is pretty good up to the waistline. The loop again is heavy, too heavy shaded here. The shade should be right in between the first and second ascender. Here, I think the slant just a little bit off, but the good thing is they are parallel to each other. Okay, the spacing here, we want this to be the same, which is good, but I find the right-hand side, which is the underturn, is a little bit narrower, right? So with letter I, you want to enter to the middle of the X height, and then you come down and exit. The dot is perfect. It should be right above the midpoint between the waistline and the first ascender. So the location of this dot is great, and it's a good width. But the only thing I would suggest is when you connect here, make it more seamless. The entrance stroke is a little bit too high. It go above the midpoint of the X height. Again, you want all the connection to be like a nice smooth oval. And when you exit, notice this is more straight, right? It's come a curve. It start with a curve and comes kind of quite straight. We want it to be a soft curve. So again, just no harm in practicing a lot of this. You can make it a full X height. You can make it half X height. Just want to make sure they're consistent. Okay, moving on to J. J entrance stroke go up to the waistline, and then you come down and exit like that. Notice the loop is not touching the, this should be the descender, right? The second descender. And make sure that it's a rounded turn, not a squarish. Now, this is still a little bit squarish, right? So when I come down here, I start curving. When I come up, I'm thinking of this round shape. And then I will come up below the baseline and exit from the baseline. Now this entrance stroke of K is perfect, it's great. Just the loop again, the shade is a little bit too heavy, but otherwise everything is quite good. She's keeping them parallel to the slant. I would say there's a tendency, sorry, it's very accurate. The slant are parallel, but it's not parallel to the 55-degree slant line. Now, in the class, we talk about it's okay if all your slant is not on 55, if it's 53 or 54, just 1 or 2 degree, it doesn't matter so much, it's fine. But if you're practicing, try to shoot for the 55. So that means you're not always, off slant and makes use of these guidelines. Now with letter L, you come up with a loop. There's a nice curve here, perfect. I think this is slightly pointy. Do you see this here? It's slightly pointed. So when you come down, right, make sure you're curving, and make it a round shape. There is a little triangle negative space here because this is on the left side here is a curve before it becomes a straight on the 55-degree slant line. Now M and N, she's following quite well with the where you start the upstroke here and here. But one thing I noticed very, very little subtle difference is the spacing is not even yet. Notice the first overturn and the second is different, right? Now, the first one is narrower, the second is a bit wider. The second and third is similar spacing, which is great. Just the first one can make it slightly bigger. Okay, and For me, or maybe for you, when you're practicing on the slant line, it can be a little bit distractive. So if you notice you're gonna go a downstroke, maybe I'll move away from the slant line and practice slightly from here so your eyes are not distracted by the line. Yeah. Now for N, again, they're quite similar, but the last spacing a little bit, tiny bit narrower, right? If I color this and this is what we're looking at. I would say this is just slightly narrower. And also, I think this practice sheet tends to have a parallel slant, but it's not parallel to the 55-degree slant line, so be aware of that. Now letter O, nice clean triangle, negative space, perfect, hit in the middle of the X height, and then touch here and exit. That's good. Again, try to make it more lighter, just less stiff. Now letter P, you want to enter at least to the waistline, come down. Now I would suggest that this is a nice full pressure downstroke. However, something is missing is this part, right? Do you see that? So I would use the nib to touch up and make sure that it goes to 1.5 from the baseline. Okay, so this is about the midpoint, so it should touch here. This square top, quite beautifully done, just a little bit line coming out. Sometimes I just draw a line on the left and it will help to make it more square top. Now for letter Q, looks really good. Entrance to the middle, oval, come down, not closing the oval shape here. This is a little bit straight. It can curve tiny bit to the left and going up. But generally it's a nice Q. I'll make it a little bit more pointed. Meaning when I come down, I make sure taper back to a hairline here. Notice this part is still quite thick. Now letter R, you have an overturn. This is supposed to be coming up from either the midpoint or a little bit lower. It's relatively like a straight line, and the blind loop is on the left side of this line, which is good, and exit with an oval in mind. So the R is pretty good. Now the S is a tricky one. Notice this is a little bit quite inky, right? A lot of ink here. This part should be thinner and then thicker back to hairline, and you continue going to curve up into a round shape. I will demonstrate once at the end. And you want to exit, if you do have an exit stroke, exit to the waistline and make sure these two lines are parallel to each other. Okay, they should be parallel. And she's doing a great job. And when you come up, it goes above the waistline and you add a press and come down like that. Now for the T here, the entrance stroke is good up to the waistline, come down. Again, do you notice this is quite zoom in? These lines a little bit shaky, right? On the left tine and the right tine. So I would touch up with the nib. There's no ink currently, but what I would do is I draw a 7 all the way down on the right hand side so that this becomes straighter and not shaky. Now connection here, this is a little bit dropped below. So make sure when we draw the horizontal line, the crossbar, you want to start from left in the middle. This is slightly higher than the middle. From the left, come here, lift and exit. Or if you're comfortable and if you're light-handed, then you can do one continuous line. But make sure you have to keep a very light hand so that it doesn't pull the ink out. Now for you, the entrance should go in the middle instead of going all the way up. So hit the middle, come down, lift, come up, the same curve, down, lift, and same curve out. Notice if I look at the spacing, it is just slightly narrower on this side, right? This is here and this is You can draw the oval out. You can see the difference. Very tiny difference, but if you want to perfect it, make sure the oval is equivalent size. Okay. Now for V, V is coming up. This is a compound curve, right? Now notice this slant is slightly off. Again, it should be parallel to the main 55-degree slant line. Again, the spacing, it's different. This is much wider than the left-hand side spacing. And this is pretty good. It comes out with an oval. So I'll pay attention more, practice a lot of overturn, practice a lot of underturn, make sure every time is consistent counter space in the middle. Now W again, entrance to the middle is good, but this line to me, it's a little bit stiff. It should be more natural curve, right? Because it's just maybe how to say, it feels more like a straight line. Yeah, you should have a soft curve coming down here, underturn, underturn. Again, it's uneven spacing. Left side looks a little bit wider than the right side. And then this is fine. Exit with an oval in mind. That's good. Now, especially if we have this whole alphabet, you can see the W, you turn it upside down, right? You see the W here. The spacing compared to the M, this is wider. You want to make sure these are all the same spacing. Okay? Meaning the oval inside should be consistent. This one is here. This one is a bit narrower. While in the M, it's narrower here, right? And then a bit more standard. Yeah, so you just have to practice a lot of overturn, underturn, compound curve. Now for X, X is when I taught, we meant to make this a little bit angle from this angle out to create some space. Now this is great. She comes down in the middle and exit in the middle, but I think it should be much lighter shade here and here, so it doesn't feel too close to this line. Okay, just a lighter hand, but everything else is great. Now for the Y, again, the first thing I notice is the counter space here on the left and on the right. This is a bit wider, so I need to bring it a bit open, just tiny little bit to make it balance. And then you come down. This is lovely, nicely done, coming up below the baseline, which is perfect. Exit, very good. And the only thing you forgot is to add the synthetic shade here in between the second descender and the first descender. Now Z, the Z is a tricky one. You do an overturn. There's a shade here. Now for this coming up, make it a little bit more natural. Exit. The shade will be in the middle here. And then again, you cross just below the baseline. The main thing I want to not promise, sorry. The main thing I want to mention here is this feels a little bit too hunchback, right? Make it a little bit softer. You can see this. Okay. Now I will try to draw the whole, but again, as I mentioned, practice it with the family group I teach in the class. Don't just do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. Now I'm not going to do everything, but I want to mention certain things that, especially for this practice sheets, is the loop. Entrance in the middle, curve. Let's say I'm writing the B. Now, when I retrace, make sure it's a round turn and the shade is just in the middle. And come down like that. So keep this nice and open, the same width, right? Notice that my oval here, about the same size. Now, what usually people did, is the shade, it's too long. You see that? Right? The shade goes all the way past the first ascender. You want to make sure the shade is just here. And this applies to all the ascending letters. Let's demonstrate the letter M and N. So maybe do an M, overturn, come down. Oops, pick up some paper fiber. What I usually do is go to the top page, tick, tick, press and release, and remove the fiber. Now I'm gonna do a bigger version. 2x height. My eyes keep checking the spacing, so more or less the same. Even when I come up, I'm not rushing because here you see that the last underturn is a bit narrower. So in my mind, I'll check this space, try to come up about the same, like that. Okay, the paper is not happy, it's bleeding a little bit. Sorry about that, but let's do. Okay, that's a lowercase m. Now for touch up for let's say letter P. To the base, right? Now, if you think this is not square enough, you can rotate your nib, make it less surface point touching the paper, and draw a 7 and L here. And exit. Make sure the spacing it's even. Now we talk a lot about these underturn, overturn. Let's try a V. Curve. Come down. Exit. Draw a blind loop and exit. So again, want the spacing to be even. Make a bigger version. You come up on slant, curve to the right, lift. Principal shade 3, coming up. Okay, and then draw the blind loop and exit. Leading a little bit, trying to touch up like so. Letter O. Make sure you turn back in a light shade and exit. Again, oval in mind. Now I will draw a line here. The ink is not very happy, or the paper is not very happy, but now I want to show you, practice a lot of this. See the curvature and the lightness. I'm not saying it's perfect, but sometimes when it's very stiff, it kind of like, you know, a straight line, right? This is very subtle. You want to make a soft curve. So every time when you do this, let's say I'm doing a letter A, you want to make sure this entering the letter A, this entrance stroke, it's very natural. Yeah, it's continuing part of an oval. And when you exit, it's the same stroke. So technically this, and this, the three, if you study my class, it's the same connective hairline. What else we can try? Like a G. curve below baseline, exit from baseline. Then you add the synthetic shade just here. Okay, now I did not press too hard because I know that if I press too hard, it's gonna cover my entrance stroke, right? So if you think this is a bit thicker than that, you can have a little bit of touch up on the right hand side so that this line looks more same thickness. Okay. Now if it's all wobbly because could be my nib, and I just draw a line. And practice a lot of this on its own. The descender. Ink is running out. Now, when this happens, you can still practice by tracing it. Now, I'll place my nib slightly above, not starting from here. I want to cover this. And what I'll do is I'll make sure my ink, I'll put it here. I'll make sure my ink, oops, I'll tap a few times so it's not too much ink. Let's see, starting slightly above. And then exit from the baseline. I want to make it smoother. I just draw a very thin line on the right hand side like that. Then you can practice your synthetic shade. 1, 2, 3. Like that. Touch up. Good habit to learn to touch up. Okay, and let's do one more. It's the letter X. We angle this a little bit out to create more space here. Now I want it to be as light as possible. Find the midpoint between here to here. Aim the middle. Then you come out from the middle and lightly add the shade. Okay, paper is bleeding a bit, but what I mean is try to keep it as light as possible. Okay, so hopefully this helps you with your practice, and I think I'm gonna share it. So yeah, thank you so much for learning with me. I hope you would join my future online classes, and yeah, keep in touch.